Hello, everybody. Welcome to our homeowner webinar. This is all about palms today. So we're going to give everybody a few minutes to join the webinar. I'm going to ask you a little icebreaker question. You can put your answer in the chat box. What is your favorite palm? And I'm going to go ahead and start because I'm going to do mine's very basic, but classic. Sable palm, cabbage palm. Love it. I love the way it looks as it grows. I don't love that the branches drop. I don't love that all the time. I don't always love the berries, but I love having a native palm in my yard and I love seeing them in the woods and I love seeing them used in landscaping. So that's my favorite one. Hannah, what's yours?
Gosh, I've always really loved the royal palm, which is one of our Florida natives. So majestic, even though it grows in the swamp.
Hmm.
Yes.
All right, let's see what else we have in here in our chat. Okay, got a bunch. Okay, we have foxtail palms. We have Madagascar palms, fan palm, sago palm. These are all classics. Actually, I'm here in Gainesville, so I have no idea what a ton of these palms are because they don't always make it up here. So we have saw palmetto, also a classic. That's throughout the whole state. Silver queen and a Mexican fan palm. What else do we have here?
Nice. Saw some buccaneer palms, lovely choices from the
Hmm.
south
Love
part of
it.
the state.
We have canary date palms. What's those? Oh, yeah, I was gonna say the jelly palm. Someone put a jelly palm in here, the little pinto palms. I did try making
Yeah.
the jelly one time. Have you ever tried making the jelly?
No, but I have just eaten the fruit. And
I tried 1 year, not great success on my
no.
end. Yeah, no, no. Okay. Oh, a ponytail palm. Oh, I'm waiting. I have one potted on my porch, and some of my friends have one in their little lanai by their pool. Little lanai, they're giant lanai, and the palm is probably like 15 feet high, and their mom got it. One of their moms got it for their wedding, and it's still here, still kicking. So that's pretty cool. Something to look forward to in 30 years. I'll have a 15-foot high ponytail palm. Okay, everyone. So thank you for all of your ponytail palm's not a palm tree. Oh my gosh, that's according to Yvonne. What do we think, Hannah?
Yes. Ivana is correct.
Oh
Yes, the
shoot, here's
ponytail
my whole
has
ponytail
gone
palm
through a few
story.
different classifications. So,
Oh boy.
yes, but it's still, it kind of functions similarly to how we place palms in a
Okay.
landscape. But ponytails, neither ponytails nor sagos are true palms,
Oh
but they
boy.
do kind of serve that function in the landscape. But nonetheless, fun, they give the fun tropical look and
That's true.
let's talk about it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started, everyone. So, welcome to the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program's Homeowner Webinar Series. This is a series given every third Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. My name is Claire Mitchell. I'm the statewide education manager for the FFL program. And today we have Hannah Eason, and she's going to speak with us about palm problems, palm solutions. Okay, so first, everybody, your microphones have been muted. If you have questions, please type them into the Q&A box because we're closing the chat box now and we'll answer our questions at the end of the presentation. Please stick around until the end of the survey, until the end of the webinar, and you can take an exit survey to give us some good topic ideas for next year and let us know how we're doing. Okay, so our next webinar will be September 15th at 11 a.m. We'll be joined by Gail Hansen. She's a professor in the Horticultural Sciences Department, and she'll be talking to us about preferences and perceptions for native plant yards. So today we are talking with Hannah Eason. She is the Regional Specialized Agent for Commercial Horticulture in Central Florida, where she provides education to support the green industry and sustainable food systems. She delivers training on integrated pest management, urban agriculture, and hydroponics, and she works to cultivate healthy, sustainable landscapes across Central Florida. So, Hannah, thank you so much for joining us and take it away.
All right. Thank you, Claire. Thank you all for joining me today to listen to this presentation about palm problems and palm solutions. So thank you for sharing your favorite palms. Palms are something that truly characterize the state of Florida. So let's talk about it. So today's presentation is going to give a history of palms. We're going to talk about the general botany of the palm. We'll talk about some of the pest and disease issues, and then the best cultural practices that really lead to the happy, healthy, thriving palms in the landscape, from pruning practices to fertility. So, palms are really something that have been around since the rise of human civilization. Palms, people, and culture all go hand in hand. And we see that palms were largely associated with early human civilizations because they could provide shade, shelter, fiber, fuel, and food. Some of our earliest sweet treats were the dates from the date palm. Some of the earliest forms of fermented beverages, that's alcohol, friends, came from palm fruits turning into palm wine. The palm frond can make for easy, great roofing and shelter, and the palm trunk can serve as a great post for structure. There's excellent fiber for clothing. And you can find that palms were even symbolic of cultural significance, like the palms that were laid whenever the Romans would claim victory. You can find palms on many different flags, and you can find palms significant in many different religions. In the Catholic culture, there's Palm Sunday. That is an entire day that is really part of that religious celebration associated with a palm, or and even the ashes of the palm. So you can find that palms are very much a part of global human history, but the palms have their own evolutionary history. Palms really are tropical and subtropical plants, predominating in the more tropical regions, but some palms are relatively cold hardy. Palms go back to about 80 million years from our evolutionary history. They are plants, they are flowering plants. Those are our angiosperms. Palms technically are monocots, and their plant family is Ericaceae. So let me go ahead and point out here that palms are monocots. Sometimes palms get called grasses. Palms are not grasses. Grasses are in the plant family Poaceae. Palms are in the plant family Ericaceae. The thing that palms have in common with grasses is that they are both monocots. And you'll see on the next slide how that impacts the palm physiologically. So palms are very Florida. As soon as you cross the border from Georgia into Florida, you are greeted with palms. So they are monocots, and here you can see that that comes down to the anatomy of the palm. They don't have any vascular cambium. The xylem and phloem are in the same vascular bundle, scattered all throughout the trunk of that palm. And these are like fibrous straws conducting the water and nutrients in the trunk as the trunk increases in height. If those get destroyed, they can't get replaced. That's uniquely different than our typical dicot trees that have these rings of growth. They can compartmentalize their issues, and they can even heal their own wounds. Palms, they can recover, but they can't really heal their wounds. They're just surviving with them. So this all really informs the biology of the palm, informs the management practices that we'll talk about throughout this presentation. And of course, here's our lovely sable palmetto, the cabbage palm, which is our state tree, even though an entire debate could be had, taking up this entire session, as to whether palms could be considered trees or not. But botanically, they are different because they are monocots. So today I want to introduce the takeaways. So I'm going to tell you what we're going to learn, then I'm going to tell you about it, and then I'm going to repeat this. So our main learning objectives and takeaways today are to select the right palm for the right place. You need to select a palm appropriate for the location and the soil that you are working with. The soil pH makes a difference. Certain very expensive palms have a kind of narrow range of pH that they prefer, where our Florida native sable palm has a very wide range of soil pH. So native palms are generally better adapted to Florida and provide other benefits, but we even have to think about the latitude because some palms are more tropical than other palms, and we definitely noticed that with our freeze that happened this year. We noticed our extreme northern climates and potential of these plants. You want to determine if the palm has a crown shaft or does not have a crown shaft. Even if you don't know the difference in species, you can tell whether a palm is self-pruning or if it will retain its leaves naturally, even if they're dead. The next thing is to think about fertilizing the palm. We fertilize for the palm, not the turf grass. Not all palm fertilizer is created equally. Generally, our rule of thumb is to select slow release macronutrients with quick release micronutrients. Native palms typically have reduced needs for nutrient inputs, but a lot of palms we plant in the landscapes are not native palms, and we need to plan for their fertility and their long-term maintenance so that we get the look that we want out of these beauties. You want to avoid over pruning living palm fronds. If it's alive, it's best not to remove it, even if it's discolored. So our rule of thumb is never to go above the 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock level, and we want to observe for nutrient deficiencies. And in general, it's a best practice to avoid opening wounds because diseases can enter open wounds. Some diseases can still happen even when we're using all of the best practices. And that's when we talk about using diagnostic tools to help. So let's dive into it. It all starts with landscape design and expectations. Think about the desired look that you want. Think about the USDA hardiness zone and what extreme cold temperatures you might be dealing with, but also think about the warm temperatures. Some palms really need things a little more toasty and a little bit more humid, and you really won't find something like a coconut producing farther north than Central Florida. The farthest north I've seen is on Lake Conway. There could be some producing coconuts further than that, but palms need to be in the appropriate place in order to have desirable results. You need to think about the soil. Can the soil support the palm? The palms pictured here on this slide, they like about an average kind of right in that mid-range of pH, about 6.5 to 7.2. So if you're outside of that range, maybe select a different palm or adjust the soil. What about wet and dry? Some areas flood. The sable palm can handle that. Other palms are drier species, maybe more adapted to desert situations or Mediterranean parts of the world. And then think about your long-term budget. Palms sometimes are the most expensive thing in the landscape, and people notice when they start looking bad. So some palms might need high-end fertilizer. They have a fancy high-end diet, while other palms might be pretty forgiving and be generally low maintenance. So you need to think about the long-term resources and the amount of maintenance that you'll be able to give to the palm. And you can have whatever you want, you just need to plan appropriately. So our palm morphology really informs the best practices. So here, it's important to look at our spear leaf. That's the youngest leaf coming out of the center. Then you can see here is the heart of the palm. This is where the new leaves are actively regenerating, and that really needs to be protected. There are typically as many leaves in that heart as you see on the outside of the palm. So not over pruning the palm is also critical to the future development of the leaves. And making sure that we have more leaves to protect that center. That's from wind damage, and that's also from cold damage. So having as many healthy leaves on the canopy actually helps to protect the health of the palm in the long term because it has one active growing point. There is one apical meristem, and it's right here in the heart of the palm underneath the spear leaf. That cannot be damaged. If it is, the palm will die. So, it's important that we understand what palms look like and what is natural. Their oldest leaves will be here at the base of the canopy, and their youngest, newest leaves will be emerging out of the top and center. So here you'll see that we have our some palms that have crown shafts. This is like our royal palm, and those are actually self-pruning palms. So you need to plan for that. And then we have, here's our native sable palm. These are both natives. This one does not have a crown shaft. It will naturally continue to hold its old dead leaves until they get pruned or blown off in a windstorm. So this is important again when it comes to selecting palms and knowing what to expect and how to maintain them. More on that later. So first, we're going to dive into the pests and diseases of palms. So here you can even see on a local bridge that we have two palms of the same species. One is clearly suffering, one is not. This happens, friends. So understanding how the diseases can impact palms is important. Many diseases enter palms through open wounds, and they can enter from water or spores, and they're usually transmitted on pruning tools, or if there's just a large open wound and wind or water can get those pathogens into the palm. And remember, palms don't compartmentalize like our larger broadleaf trees do. So once it's in, and it's moving all throughout the palm. We have bud rots, we have wilts, and we have butt rots. So we'll talk about them. Generally, we want to avoid opening wounds if at all possible. We want to sanitize tools if we are opening wounds, and the more expensive the palm. We have diseases called phytoplasmas that are spread by insects. Minimizing the expensive susceptible species in your landscape or making sure to plan a budget around those expensive trees will help to lead to greater success. We need to monitor and scout for issues because some of these things can pop up rather quickly and you need to know how to respond and manage. And then insect damage can also be an issue. Palm weevils, palm leaf skeletonizers, those sometimes are even just attracted to an over pruned or stressed out palm. So it's important that we talk about how our palms, when we have a palm showing issues, we need to look at the progress of decline. A dead sample is not informative. We need to see things while they're on the way down. So we want to see living plant tissue and we want information from the people. And plant diagnostics is both a science and an art form where we're looking at visual cues, we're listening to information, and we're actually using data, and we're using tools like testing soil pH or doing real plant pathology to determine what might be affecting our palms negatively here. So photos, samples, and records are the best way to determine what's happening to a palm. So we'll start off by talking about bud rots. These can be more common after freezing situations. This is a fungal pathogen caused by Phytophthora, and this will affect the apical meristem in the center of the palm and the new growth. This is the most common bud rot, and it is spread by water and wind, and it is long-lived in the soil, and it spreads on pruning tools. You'll notice a wilting of the spear leaf, wilting of the young fronds up in that new growth. The older fronds, the old growth towards the lower part of the canopy will remain green and healthy. You will not see new leaves emerging because that bud is dead, and you might notice a yucky smell coming out of this. Another bud rot, we're talking about the bud at the top of the palm, is the Leviopsis. This is a fungal issue. It has a broad host range, and this is a soil-borne fungus that enters through open wounds, and it often is spread on pruning tools. This can enter through cracks, and it can affect and essentially turn that bud, that top third portion of the palm, to mush. That's where you'll see the top third of palms just toppled over, like what is pictured here. So, you might even see some bleeding from the trunk. It's more common in queen palms and coconut palms, and you'll notice some softer tissue. The top portion of the palm is generally softer tissue than the two-thirds of the base of the palm, and that is where thalaviopsis can cause issues, is in that top portion of the palm. And you really won't know that things are going down until you have trunk or canopy collapse. So not over pruning is essential. So when it comes to bud rots, we need to look at healthy and diseased tissue, and they can affect the container grown palms and nursery palms. And you need to think about how you're accessing that material. Some palm samples are not easy to get, and laboratory diagnostics is required to determine between the two. Different fungicide groups can be used, but in general, we want to focus on prevention because the efficacy of fungicides is very limited to maybe only having some impact in nursery settings and landscapes. It's not a very realistic solution. So we focus on prevention, which means sanitizing pruning tools, avoid opening wounds, and planting in well-drained soil. If you do have a nursery situation, we do have information about bud drenches that may be helpful, but we really need more research on that. The management, we need to remove and incinerate affected palms. These are major issues, and the palms usually die, and they can be safety issues. Ganoderma butt rot. You guessed it, this happens at the base of the palm, hence the name butt rot as opposed to bud rot. This is decaying at the base, so that basal part of the tree is going to get softer. That is where you can get this white rot entering through open wounds and cracks. This might be from getting hit by a mower, or this was just something in the soil. This is a slower moving pathogen that can take 6 months to a year before symptoms are observed. It degrades the vascular tissue, and the old fronds will turn a light green gray. They will wither up and droop, and the new fronds will appear water stressed. Eventually, the entire crown will die. But a good rule of thumb, if you can feel a loose base, if you can kind of wiggle a palm back and forth or maybe even push into it, it might be a Ganoderma issue. And if you see conchs forming, here's the little marshmallow looking juvenile forms, and here is Ganoderma in its mature shelf reproductive fashion. That is a sure sign that you have a case of the butt rot on your palms. You need to remove these even off of old trunks and roots that were left behind. You should remove them like you're picking up doggy poop, where you kind of go in and encase them with a plastic bag and throw them away. But that's really just to prevent the infection of other palms with the spores. If you have a palm with this issue, chances are it's a goner. In nature, it does the job of helping to decompose trees, but in our managed landscapes, it can wreak havoc. We do have new sampling techniques thanks to IFAS researchers. All of this information I'm teaching to you today is informed by generations of researchers, and our current researchers are figuring out how to provide better diagnostics for Ganoderma butt rot. So if you think this is something you're dealing with, then sawdust sampling might need to be employed for diagnostics, and we'll have more information. Reach out to your county agent if you think that is an issue. Fusarium wilt. This can affect many palms, expensive palms, common palms, and this blocks the vascular system and impacts the movement of water through the palm. It's a quick killer and it spreads through pruning tools and infested soil, and it can be in the soil for up to 25 years. It does have this characteristic one-sided decline of the leaf. It starts in the lower leaves and moves upwards, and you'll notice the streaking of the petiole and rachis. Here, you'll notice this kind of freeze-dried appearance of the palm, and this will come on rather quickly in like a few months or less. So, this one is a quick killer and it will bring your palms down. So, a lab diagnosis is required to confirm Fusarium wilt. And technically, there is no cure. This is a lethal disease. Fungicides are not affected. So, again, we focus on prevention. Since this enters through open wounds and infested soil, we only prune dead fronds. We disinfect our pruning tools if we're cutting into any living tissue, and we replace the palm with a non-susceptible species. So, you need to select a palm or a non-palm species that will not be susceptible to Fusarium. So again, that's why diagnostics is even important after the fact so that you don't get the same disease again. Leaf spots and blights happen. Typically, these are not deadly, but they are unattractive. These are typically caused by fungi, and most are pretty similar. And this has to do more so with leaf wetness. Rainfall is something we cannot control, but overhead irrigation is something we can control. Interior scapes with overhead irrigation might have more issues with leaf spots and poor airflow and circulation. So if your plants are planted really tight in the landscape and have poor airflow and circulation, you'll be more likely to have some of these issues. And it might be a secondary problem to a nutrient deficiency or just showing that your palm is struggling with its health in some other areas. But it's not typically lethal. But this one, bum bum bum, lethal bronzing is a pretty big issue. It used to be called Texas Phoenix palm decline, but it didn't know it was named after Texas, and it continued to move across the South. And we continue to track it across Florida. New counties get added pretty regularly with new records of lethal bronzing. It kills our favorite native, the sable. It kills our most expensive phoenix palms, such as the Canary Island date palm. And it can harm at least 21 different species of palms in Florida. It was discovered in Florida in 2006, and this is a weird disease that even when we're using best management practices, this disease is actually spread by a sap-feeding insect, and it only lives inside of the insect or inside of the palm. So it's actually really challenging for our scientists to research this stinker. It's very perplexing, but we do have experts dedicated to figuring out how to better manage phytoplasma diseases impacting our landscapes. The symptoms for lethal bronzing include premature fruit drop, quick discoloration of your older leaves, starting from the base moving up, and it is kind of a bronzy reddish brown color that you'll see characterizing lethal bronzing as opposed to maybe a nutrient deficiency that might be more of a hay color. And it will gradually advance upward, and you'll notice an unusual number of dead leaves. Once you see the spear leaf is gone, that's usually one of the first things that you actually notice. But that is usually an indication that this disease has advanced pretty well and will be responsible for killing the palm. It take different amounts of time to take down the palm depending on the species, but sometimes typically 2 to 3 months. So we want to prevent this issue. We can inject palms and we are looking at different management options, but we also want to manage that insect with insecticides so that it's not actually feeding on the palm and transmitting diseases. Really, if you have expensive high-end palms that are susceptible, prominent in your landscape, it's worth it to reach out to your county extension agent and work with experts to come up with a plan so you know how to prevent and maintain your very expensive palm inventory for now and long into the future, because these are very expensive plants. Sometimes our date palms can be easily tens of thousands of dollars for one palm. If your palm tests positive for this, it must be removed and destroyed. If it tests negative, but you're finding that the disease is present in the area, considering insecticidal drenches and potential antibiotic oxytetracycline treatments might be helpful. And here's some information about drilling into the palm and taking sawdust samples. If you want to know more, look at our EDIS documents or join me next month with a colleague teaching a training where we will show these sampling procedures. Next up, we have palm leaf skeletonizers. These are little caterpillars that are feeding between the tissue of the leaves. And they are native to Florida, but they can be unattractive. So tolerance would be the first recommendation, but you can use beneficial insects by having just a healthy, diverse landscape. You can wash them off, you can prune it out, or you could use insecticides like BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, to treat those caterpillars specifically. And here's what it looks like. Next up, the palm weevil. This one is absolutely capable of killing palms. And this is the largest weevil in North America. You can see the size of the finger in that picture and the size of these grubs. So this one, we do have records that show that it was present up to 1 million years ago. And this has attracted distressed palms, especially freshly pruned and over pruned palms. This insect will pick up on the pheromones of the stressed palm and it will seek it out. And it will make nests, it will lay eggs inside of the leaves and wounds, and the larva will feed on the apical meristem tissue. They will feed on the heart of the palm. They will emerge as adults and they will repeat the cycle on their next most expensive species. They have an appetite for Bismarck palms especially, but they don't discriminate. They will feast on other palms and they really like stressed out palms. Doing insecticidal drenches if you do have Bismarcks, or if you do need to over prune a palm for any reason, then you probably should consider an insecticidal drench so these insects are not attracted to the palm and capable of killing it. You can notice some of the earlier stages. You'll notice some of those lower leaves dropping, and you might notice holes, some pretty good sized holes on the palm. And the frass don't lie. They're little cocoons and bundles. They are all, and their excrement and the thatch mess that they'll leave around a palm are all really telltale signs that you should look further. If you're seeing a mess around the base of the palm, you might want to look up into the canopy and see what else you can find. And if this is an issue that you have, then removing and destroying the infected palm is what you need to do. Palm aphids can happen. They can cause sooty mold issue. There is a unique palm aphid that does not look like a typical aphid. This is what it looks like here. It can cause sooty mold. So just be aware that this is something that can happen, especially further south in the state. And that sooty mold is a result of this fungus growing on top of the honeydew, which is the excrement from that aphid. So management aimed at the aphid would be good. Biological control is great. So having a diverse landscape where you're not overly using broad spectrum insecticides and accidentally killing your good bugs is really the best way to make sure that your aphid populations are managed. And if you have crazy high populations, horticultural oils can help, but we kind of want to avoid things like pyrethroids because that will kill our beneficial insects and natural enemies, which are often our best options for long-term maintenance and management. The Phantasma scale is a newer, strange scale that we are dealing with here. I just want to say that if you are dealing with the Phantasma scale or you think you might be dealing with this, you need to work with horticultural oils and insecticidal soaps because some of the other insecticides are not effective on this particular insect. So reach out to your county agent and know that there's more information about this interesting newer pest that we are dealing with in the state. So, our overview and takeaways are that diseases enter through open wounds from water or spores, and they're frequently transmitted on pruning tools. So, we don't recommend opening unnecessary wounds, and we do recommend sanitizing pruning tools, especially if there are open wounds or if you have a very expensive palm. Phytoplasmas are spread by insects, so we can't do much with that. So minimizing your expensive susceptible species or having a budget to make sure that you're planning to love your expensive species. You might need to drench and you might need to inject. Again, that's money. Insect damage can happen. Generally, don't over prune your palm and stress it out. So, the takeaways: select palms that are appropriate for the site, minimize expensive susceptible species, and fertilize the palm appropriately. Don't open wounds, don't prune living leaves, never above 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, sanitize tools, and monitor for potential issues. Now we're going to talk about where the real magic happens, and that's the fertilization, pruning, and the environment. So it's important that we remember that plants photosynthesize. They are literally eating light, water, and carbon dioxide, and they need nutrients to be healthy and to grow. But plants also have a pH range that impacts which nutrients they have access to. And palms are no exception. You need to select the right palm for the right place. Some of these specimens are so expensive, it makes a really big difference. So we can read our plants, and palms are arguably easier to read than other plants. So we can read a palm for nutrient deficiency. You don't have to memorize this, just know to look it up when you think about this. But in general, you'll notice that palms will show micronutrient deficiencies in the new growth. And that is because they are immobile nutrients. The palm cannot move those nutrients from the old growth into the new growth. They can only get it from the soil and into the new growth, or even from sometimes foliar inputs. Our macronutrients are mobile nutrients. If the palm is not getting enough of a macronutrient out of the soil, the palm will steal it from its old leaves and move it into the new leaves. So if your palm is a little hangry for a macronutrient, the old leaves will look deficient. All right? You're about to become palm readers. So, your nutritional deficiencies are actually the most common killer of palms in Florida. None of those lethal diseases are more common than killing your palm from hanger, nutrient deficiency. A nutrient deficient leaf will remain that way until it fully dies or until you prune it off. The correction requires growth of new non-deficient leaves. And sometimes it can take up to 3 years for a palm to replace its canopy, which post-freeze, we still have a couple more years, friends, before our palms that did survive regenerate their canopy. So we want to prevent deficiencies. And we do that by selecting the right palm for the right place. We need to test the pH of the soil, especially for expensive palms. We fertilize for the palm, not the turf grass. The palm is the picky eater in the landscape, so we need to feed for the palm, not the grass. If it's not dead, don't prune it off unless like if you don't have to prune it off, we don't recommend pruning it off. Sometimes you do. Sometimes we have streetscapes or parking lots or hazardous areas, but in general, we don't want to be pruning leaves above that 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock level. And our current IFAS research shows that an 8012 magnesium palm fertilizer for fancy palms or palms that need a little additional nutrition is beneficial. That's slow release macronutrients, quick release micronutrients. But what's cool about this is we have scientists and they're always asking new questions. So stay tuned for more information on this. This is our current rule of thumb. All right, our common macronutrient deficiencies are potassium and magnesium, and these deficiencies occur in the old growth because the palm is moving it to the new growth. Potassium deficiencies are here in these older leaves. They are going to show up as a translucent yellow to orange necrotic freckling or spotting of the foliage. You'll notice necrotic and curling leaf tips here, but you'll notice that the rachis, that essentially the midrib of this palm, is still green. So that is a sign of a potassium deficiency. Do not remove that leaf. Here you can see, looking from the underside of the leaf, a freckly look to it. That is a potassium deficiency. As it advances, it becomes necrotic and black spotting will start to show up. And you can see here some dead leaf tips. It is not recommended to remove that leaf because if you remove it, it will just advance the deficiency to the next set of leaves. Your palm is telling you that it's hangry and you need to correct it with the right fertilizer. Here you can see the difference between natural senescence of an old leaf just getting used and sloughed off compared to a potassium deficient leaf showing that the palm is hangry. It's starving right now and it's telling you it still has that green midrib, but we can see necrosis on the leaflets. Magnesium deficiencies are the most severe on the oldest leaves. You'll see marginal necrosis, and it's really like this highlighter color, but the center of the leaflet is still going to be green. And this is down in the lower parts of the leaf. So these are macronutrient deficiencies in the lower portion of the canopy. Our micronutrient deficiencies occur in the new growth in the top of the canopy. And the common micronutrient deficiencies are manganese and boron. Manganese affects the youngest leaves and it is most severe at the base of the leaves. So closer into the crown as opposed to down at the leaf tips, which is more of a potassium thing. You'll notice intervenal chlorosis and necrotic streaking, and you'll really notice this frizzling, this frizzle top is very characteristic of a manganese deficiency, and it can kill the apical meristem or the bud of the palm. Here you can see that manganese deficiency compared to a potassium deficiency. And here you can see that frizzle top. Boron is the other common micronutrient deficiency that affects the newest growth of the palm. You're seeing this is a very common issue right now as our palms are recovering from a freeze event. This is no surprise. This is because of that freeze event. It can happen even as a result of post flooding, post too much irrigation, and sometimes it shows up, it has a delayed effect, even 6 months after a temporary environmental condition may have occurred. It affects those newest leaves, and it will show the accordion leaf symptoms. It can also abort flowers and fruits, and it will sometimes even show horizontal growth where the tree top actually will start to curve over. And that can even be a temporary condition. So sometimes patience is even what the doctor ordered. Here you can see that accordion look to it, very typical of boron. And this is also a typical issue associated with boron when we notice the entire top of the tree turning over at like a sharp right angle, and that they can sometimes recover from that. You'll also notice some truncated leaf growth here, also typical of a boron deficiency. Here you can see the new growth is just turning at a sharp angle. That's your palm showing that it has a boron deficiency. So it's important to think about the conditions that occurred maybe 4 to 8 months ago to think whether this was maybe caused by a temporary and fleeting environmental condition or maybe a hurricane or broken irrigation line, or is this an actual deficiency from the soil? So, causes of deficiency: wrong palm, wrong place, not enough goods in the soil, wrong pH, too much phosphate or organic matter, or even sewage sludge, or a nutrient imbalance. So, it's important to get quality palm fertilizer. Currently, UF research recommends an 8-2-12-4. That 4 represents the magnesium addition because magnesium is important for palms, but with fertilizer laws, it's important to get a 0 phosphorus. So it's an 8-0-12-4 magnesium. And looking at the guaranteed analysis of nutrients can tell you a lot. We like slow release macronutrients, and we like quick release micronutrients to feed palms the way they need to be fed. If you are in charge of anything with an HOA or any landscape plans, it's important to be specific in your contracts and bids. No fertilizer might be better than the wrong fertilizer. And there's more research happening on this. So I hope that I can be a part of this evolution of the fertility story. We don't want to over prune our palms. We like 360 canopies. Again, it's acceptable to prune at 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, but you might be opening wounds. We absolutely do not want to go above that. That can cause a lot of issues, pest issues, disease issues, and you're just reducing the health of the palm. This is what we like to see our palms looking like. So again, palm morphology. Palms that have a crown shaft are self-pruning. So it's perfectly natural for that oldest leaf of a crown shaft having palm to discolor, die, and fall off. And it's perfectly natural for the next oldest leaf to start showing those signs. But if you have more than like 1.5 leaves looking funky on a crown shaft palm, that's worth looking into. Your palm might be hangry or it might have other issues. For our palms without crown shafts that naturally hold their old leaves, it's okay that they are holding those old leaves as long as you're okay with that look. And it's really giving off the warning sign if you start to see discoloration advancing above that 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock level. So those are kind of your rules of thumb when it comes to that. And these are 4 reasons not to over prune your palms: disease, disease where it can topple on top of cars, insect issues, and nutrient deficiencies. So again, potassium is a mobile element. I've learned this the hard way. I've pruned this leaf off, y'all. And then this leaf started looking bad. And then that one started, and then the whole thing dies. So this is actually important for us to notice what our plants are telling us. And this is our plant telling us, I need some good palm nutrients in my root zone. So it's really what to remove. We really don't like to go above 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock. You can remove flowers and fruits because the energy is leaving the palm instead of going into the palm. And we really want you to be conscientious about sanitizing pruning tools if you are opening wounds, again, because so many diseases can enter. So, damaged leaves, flowers, and fruits. But I want you to think about areas where plants might make a mess and areas where it doesn't really matter. If there are flowers and fruits making a mess on a sidewalk where lots of people are walking, maybe it's better to remove the thing that could cause a trip hazard. But if it's out in a park somewhere, this is food for pollinators, this is food for wildlife, and we want to have as much food for nature as many places as we can, even in our urban landscapes. We just need to think about the plant and the location and how that will impact our management strategies. We want to transplant our palms really these are plants that we like to transplant when they're actively growing and when it's actively raining. Our research shows June through November in the rainy season increases chances of survival. We need to water these things daily for at least 30 days, and the root ball needs to remain moist for at least 4 to 6 months, up to a year, until the palm becomes fully established. We never want to nail directly into the palm, and you don't want to plant the palm too deep. Our palms can initiate roots phenomenally well because they are monocots. So when our palms get balled and burlapped and transported and what seems like a tortured size of a root ball, that is actually perfectly fine for palms because that aligns with their biology. They can initiate lots of new roots, and even if you see a palm initiating roots far up the trunk, that is also perfectly natural. A few other things, you'll notice abiotic issues. You'll notice palms get a little cranky when their leaves are close to power lines. You'll also notice issues if palms have been transplanted with plastic straps still on them. The plastic needs to be removed. Metal is not as big of an issue, plastic, according to our research, but plastic definitely is. Cold damage, susceptibility to cold will vary. Select the right palm for the right place. We learned that real good this year. Cold damage can lead to bud rots, and frost can affect exposed parts of palms. Palms are also like lightning rods in the landscape. So if you have a surprisingly fast decline of a palm, go out, look for bleeding, and look for exploded trunk. Lightning could have hit your palm and killed it. We have almost no control. We don't control that. Planting depth. Don't plant them too deep, but don't plant them too shallow. It's a Goldilocks situation. Plant them just right. And herbicide injury can happen where you'll notice some deformed new growth. It might not be visible for 6 to 8 months, so be conscientious about your herbicide applications before you plant a palm or within the root zone of a palm. And even though palms are perfectly adapted to deal with wind because their leaves are naturally serrated, wind damage can still affect palms and give that very tattered look and appearance or even break off the leaves. Some are not as well adapted to climates with hurricanes and they might be more desert palms, so that can happen. So, our learning objectives and takeaways: select the right palm for the right place. The soil pH matters for certain palms, and generally native palms are better adapted to Florida and provide other ecological benefits. But we even have our own northernmost latitudes for some of our palms, like the Buccaneer palm is really meant for South Florida climates. You want to determine if the palm has a crown shaft or does not have a crown shaft because palms with crown shafts are self-pruning. So make sure you know where that is going to go and that it's not going to fall on top of where your car is parked, or manage it appropriately if it is. If necessary, fertilize for your palm, not for your turf grass. Get the better, higher end fertilizer for the palm because the palm is the pickier eater and is the more expensive landscape plant. And the way your palm grows will differ depending on the nutrients it's feeding on. So, not all palm fertilizer is created equally. Look for your slow release macros and your quick release micros. Native palms generally have reduced fertility requirements. We want to avoid pruning living palm fronds if and when possible. And we never want to prune above that 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock level. We want to observe palms for nutrient deficiencies and correct the issue before removing it. And we want to avoid opening wounds if at all possible because so many of the lethal diseases can enter those open wounds, sometimes even on our own pruning tools. Some diseases can still happen even when we're all doing all the right things, and that's where our diagnostic tools and expert resources can really help. So, if you are as obsessed with palms or you just have the great pleasure of managing them as much as I do, please join me and my colleague Dr. Heather Calaman next month for our Palms workshop at the Orange County Extension Office. But also know that we have expert palm specialists that we work with in Extension to answer our past, present, and future questions about palms. So thank you to Dr. McMillan, Dr. Dillon, and Dr. Bader for all of your expertise. And our experts host a biannual event every other year called Palm Quest. So if you're really into this stuff, plan for April 2028 to look for Palm Quest to get all those industry and expert updates. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Oh, where's the video? There it is. Hello. And thank you so much, Hannah, for this very informative presentation. I think this is the most questions I've ever gotten. So we have a few. Get ready. But before we get started with that, our webinar participants, we have a favor to ask you. A survey just popped up, and we would love to get your feedback about some of our apps that we use. It's just 3 questions. We're trying to gain some insights about our these are the plant app, butterfly app, how you use them, and so how you answer this will help influence some extension education programming. If you've already taken this went out to a big Master Gardener listserv. Just skip this survey, please. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and really hammer this in, Hannah. We had a question. One of the first questions here says, if we get a level 2 hurricane, a category 2 hurricane or above, should we just hurricane cut our palms?
Absolutely not.
Okay, what does hurricane cutting mean? Again, one more time, because this is probably one of the biggest palm problems that we see in our landscapes, correct?
Um, yeah, it is a way that you pay lots of money to landscapers
And to hurt your palm.
to hurt your palms,
Yeah.
and many landscapers do know that there are rarely occasions that would warrant such over pruning. The term hurricane pruning is wrong. It is like a marketing ploy. And everything that I explained about the biology of the palm, where the heart of the palm is, how all of the leaves on the palm have evolved for 80 million years to protect that one active growing point of the palm, are all the reasons not to remove everything intended to protect the one active living growing point of the palm. So we do not want to do that. Hurricane pruning your palms can actually lead to the nail in the coffin.
So I put a picture. Someone asked also, what does 9 to 3 level mean? I put a picture. It was also in the presentation in the chat. I'm looking at the question and answers and the chat right now, but there's a beautiful illustration of thinking about a clock where the nine is and the three is on a clock. You never want to prune above that. So yeah, just like that. Never prune above that horizontal line.
Never.
So if your HOA is paying for this, if you're paying for this, just stop. Stop it. It's not good. The second most popular question that we had in here was, how do you sanitize your tools?
Um, there are a few different options. We have some documents on sanitizing your tools appropriately, with commercial or household types of
Okay.
disinfectants.
Kaylee, if you're listening, can you try to find that article and we'll post that in the chat if we can find it on the fly. Okay, so we have, oh boy, I guess this isn't it. Okay, well, here's one. What's an insecticide wash?
An insecticide wash?
Did that come up in
A
a couple?
drench?
Oh, drench,
An
that's what I meant.
insecticide drench is something that would typically be an insecticide poured in the root zone of a plant. There are certain insecticides that are more specific to killing just the pest insect that is feeding on the plant. And these are systemic insecticides that are taken up through the system of the plant. So then only the pest that's actively feeding on the plant will be the one that's really exposed to the killing chemical. And and certain pest management decisions that would have certain advantages or benefits so that you're not harming non-target insects.
Okay. Um, We had a few, okay, well, this was an interesting one too. So many counties throughout the state will have a fertilizer blackout. Would that really affect your timing for fertilizing your palms?
Yeah, I mean, you need to follow your local laws and ordinances, and then you need to do the best that you can to determine the right time to feed your palms. But I'd say the more important consideration here is selecting palms that don't need a lot of additional fertilizer. Our Canary Island date palms kind of show like almost a chronic magnesium deficiency where their lower leaves are a little bit more of that highlighter color yellow with the green midribs and rachis. And that's just a chronic issue associated with them. A lot of these palms are 20, 30, 40,000 dollars for one,
Wow.
and then they need really unique fertility and maintenance practices for the long term. So while that's a stunning, majestic palm, the more important questions we need to be thinking about is if you're dealing with fertilizer restrictions, what palms are should you be planting in your landscape? Not ones that have a chronic nutrient deficiency and need to be fertilized multiple times a year. And then I gotta say, that's where our research comes into play. We don't have outcomes yet, but we do have researchers that are figuring out other options, like right now as we speak. So that's why you should keep coming to these webinars.
I kind of on that same note, else asked, like, why are there so many diseases that affect palms? And they asked if it was related to climate change, but is it a lot of it? Is it climate change or is it people are planting palms where they don't belong?
Hmm. Gosh. Um, I'm not exactly sure. I don't have a solid answer for that, but what is kind of coming to mind is that palms are expensive and noticeable.
Mm,
So I think a lot of different plants are experiencing a lot of different issues, but a lot of different plants are not like $10,000 for one.
yeah.
And we really notice. You notice when palms are alive, but you really notice when they're dead.
Yeah, for sure.
So I sometimes wonder if it has more to do with the prominence of palms in our landscape
Hmm.
than that they get more or less diseases. That said, the fact that they are monocots and cannot compartmentalize and heal the same way as our broadleaf trees is one reason that it is probably more noticeable and argue and maybe more lethal.
Interesting. Okay, I have two pygmy date balm questions that might apply to some other palms as well. So both of them were affected in the freeze. One of them, the smallest trunk, did not survive the cold in the spring. So should that trunk be removed or should they leave it in place? And then the second one was again the freeze. Many of the fronds are half brown and the new growth looks good. And can they prune now?
Um, So if the one trunk is completely dead on the little cluster, then that's something that could go ahead and be removed. And then on as the palms are recovering, that's kind of what's your aesthetic tolerance for the
Mm,
issue? But again, as long as it's completely dead tissue, then even if it's half of the leaf since things got weird because of the freeze, then just remove up to, where it's still dead for whatever is aesthetically pleasing without moving into that living tissue because that living tissue has nutrients that the palm is really using to regain its health and cycle into that newer growth. And it's kind of a painful process of patience.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've never, we have so many questions. Okay, guys,
Come to our class.
I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna ask one more question here. Oh my goodness. Okay, so a lot of people are asking about where to get fertilizer and what kind of fertilizer. I mean, if you just look for any palm fertilizer at a garden center, is that it just need to say palm fertilizer?
It needs to have slow release macronutrients and quick release micronutrients.
Interesting. Okay.
And you really we do have some great UF documents on fertilizing your palms. So I would look into that. We again, like with the more limited time, I didn't get into some of the slides about how a turf fertilizer with higher nitrogen without the same balance of macronutrients will push new growth in the palm faster than the palm can get the potassium out of the soil. So it actually induces nutrient deficiencies in the palm. So it is really important to fertilize. If you have palms that need to be fertilized, not all palms do. Like a lot of sable palms are perfectly happy in our swampy, humid, sandy, whatever Florida has to throw at them. But some palms do need that extra nutrition. And if they do, it's important to feed them properly, and do your homework. We have information on that current. We have future information that will be coming in some time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. I put a lot of links in the chat box. I'm looking at some other articles here. I don't think that one's as good. Okay. What did I put in the chat box? I put that the webinar, this webinar right here, because a lot of people want your slides, will be posted on the FFL YouTube in a week or so. Give us a little bit of time to post it. That link to our FFL YouTube is right there, and there we have a playlist for the homeowner webinars, and that's all the homeowner webinars we've had this year. So go ahead and ask there. So, or look for it there. Next, if we did not get to your question, um, you may contact your local county extension agent. and they might be able to help you. And that is a really good way to get involved with Extension. We have a lot of really great free resources. And that link of how to find your local county extension agent is in the chat box. We double posted here how to sanitize your tools. You can learn how to
Yay.
sanitize your tools right there. And then
Yeah.
we have a few articles, EDIS publications about fertilizing palms. Um, so if y'all aren't familiar, if you have a question pretty much about any lawn and garden landscaping issue, you can search for that topic with either IFAS or EDIS after it. And if you do EDIS, you'll get some like heavy hittings. Well, it's not like a scientific paper like in a journal, but it's about in between like a magazine article and a journal article. So you'll get some very specific information. We have plant profiles. So if you have a specific palm that you're trying to look up, search your name of your palm in EDIS or IFAS, and you'll get some information about your palm. And then here at Hannah's email is also posted here on this last slide. And remember that this palms class is coming up. And so I think that was one of the first links in the chat too. I'll have to look. It's posted. Yep, first thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's irrigation training. Hold on. Nope. Okay. Well, we'll find. Oh, there it is. The next class. They're right here. If you guys want to take a picture of this page to look for the Palms class, that is also coming up. So, everybody, thank you so much for attending. Hannah, thank you so much for this really great information,
Yes.
and we will see
Thank you.
you at our next webinar.
Thanks, everyone.